What if I told you that the financial system never intended for you to pay your debts, only to discharge them? In this video, I'm going to break down the shocking truth about how money, debt, and discharge actually work, why payment is a trap, what discharge actually means, and how to take back your financial power. This is backed by real laws, real remedy, and the history they never taught us. Now, if this is your first time coming to this channel, remember to hit the like button, remember to hit the subscribe button, remember to stay tapped in because we're going to be talking about information that nobody is talking about. Number two, remember, this is not legal, nor is it financial advice. Remember to do your due diligence and tap into the information, okay? We're going to go ahead and get straight into it. I'm not going to talk too much about and give too much fluff. We're going to dive straight into the information, okay? So let's talk about the difference between payment and discharge. I think that a lot of times when people, they get it confused because a lot of times the argument that the debt collector will have is that you agree to pay, okay? And people think that discharging doesn't fulfill that. But let's just pull up the definition of payment, okay? Payment, Black Law Dictionary. Oh boy. When you look at Black Law Dictionary, it says that payment, the definition of payment is performance of a duty, promise, or obligation, or discharge of a debt or liability by delivery of money or other value. Understand me? I'm laughing because, I mean, if you're asking me to pay, you're literally asking me to discharge the debt. You feel what I'm saying? Oh, I love this. But then we can go to the definition of discharge. It says that the definition of discharge is the opposite of charge, okay? Hence to release, liberate, annul, unburden, disencumber, okay? To cancel or unloose the obligation of a contract, to make an agreement, or contract null or inoperative. We starting off funny today. You understand me? Please tell me to pay because you're literally telling me to do everything that I do here. I don't know what it is, okay? The key point is because post 1933, post House Joint Resolution 192, payment became impossible because there's literally no way to actually pay using lawful money. Because what if I told you that the only lawful money is gold, okay? What if I told you that this dollar is just a discharge instrument, okay? I think you guys are really in for a treat. This may be my best video yet, okay? Now, let's just bring up the supporting law, all right? You can come to House Joint Resolution 192, and it talks about how on June 5th, 1933, Congress enacted House Joint Resolution 192 to suspend the gold standard and abrogate the gold clause, okay? Skipping down, this resolution declared that any obligation requiring a payment in gold or a particular kind of coin or currency or in any amount of money policy, and every obligation herefore and hereafter incurred shall be discharged upon payment dollar for dollar in any coin or currency, which at the time of payment is legal tender or public and private debts, shall be discharged. Okay? Every obligation. But then we can go to 31 USC, which backs up House Joint Resolution 192. Someone says, well, this was repealed. Okay, well, 31 USC 5118 is still in the Constitution, which backs up House Joint Resolution 192. It says that U.S. obligations cannot require a payment in gold, meaning only discharge through credit is expected. Okay? It even breaks down the definition of a public debt obligation, means a domestic obligation issued or guaranteed by the United States. We all know what domestic means. Home, obligation, okay? What is the definition of obligation? Means any obligation, okay? Payable in United States money is issued or guaranteed. This is insurance by the United States government to repay money or interest, okay? Can scroll down to D. In this subsection, obligation means any obligation. All right. Any obligation containing a gold clause or governed by a gold clause is discharged on payment dollar for dollar in the United States coin or currency that is legal tender at the time of payment. Okay. So we can also go to 12 USC 411. 12 USC 411 breaks down how Federal Reserve notes the dollar are obligations of the United States and not lawful money. Okay, All this is just that there is evidence that there is a debt, okay? Not a means to pay. So you asking for $1, speaking to my debt collector, speaking to my creditors, you asking for $1, you just asking for evidence of debt, okay? Now that we kind of have that covered, okay, some of the supporting laws, let's talk about some real world examples of debt discharge, okay? When it comes to IRS debt, okay, and we're about to start talking about IRS debt, but this is not tax advice either, okay? The IRS issues a 1099-C when a debt is canceled. This is legal discharge, not payment. So when a company charges off your debt, they file a 1099-C to discharge the obligation, okay? When this happens, the lender gets a write-off and the taxpayer may get a tax liability unless it is disputed, okay? So thinking of the 1099-C, originally one may want to fill it out themselves, but the thing is the banks will just do it already. Like if you decide not to use your discharge dollars to discharge the debt, they're going to use an IRS form to discharge the debt. If they use an IRS form to discharge the debt, then you can literally challenge that claim when they come after you for a debt and say that you owe them. Okay? Because they can't double recover. After they have charged off a debt, they've nullified the contract. Okay? We can go back to the definition of discharge. The definition of discharge is what? The opposite of charge: release, liberate, annul, unburden, disencumber, to cancel or unloose the obligation of a contract. So if you were so dead set on me paying you money, why would you unloose the obligation? Why would you make the contract null? Why would you make it inoperative? And one would say, well, this stuff you won't be able to argue this. Well, I mean, if discharge means this here, are you telling me I won't be able to argue with the true definition that the law sees it as? Okay, so that's the IRS example. The other real world example is when it comes to a mortgage or a credit card default. Banks charge off the debt after 180 days. It is discharged commercially through a 1099, okay? Then sold to a debt collector for pennies. That's when they buy your information. They're not really buying the title, okay? And debt collectors never pay for the debt. They bought the rights to enforce, not proof of a lawful contract. And we're going to talk about how to challenge them, but it's very simple. You challenge them with a debt validation letter, okay? We talk about this in the school community, okay? And then the other way your debts can be discharged is through bankruptcy. The courts use discharge orders to distinguish debt, not to extinguish debt, not to repay it. So every system in place is built around discharge. They just make sure you never learn how to do it without them. See, that's the key. The only way we thought we could discharge our debts before is through bankruptcy, okay? And we used to be under the assumption that the only thing we could do was pay our debts, and if we can't pay our debts, we're gonna go to jail, or we are forever, not gonna be able to purchase a home. We are doing something immoral, right? Now, obviously, if you come to your bro and your bro loans you $1,000, you can't just discharge that, okay? But when we're talking about a consumer credit transaction, anything that's connected to your SSN, anything that's connected to your straw man, you have the right to discharge your debt. And if you can't, why would they have these definitions in the law? Okay. Somebody went in my Twitch and said, man, you're spreading misinformation. Okay, well, if I'm spreading misinformation, so is Black Law Dictionary, because that's the only place I'm getting my information from. Imagine that somebody comes straight in the comment section on my Twitch, literally to write me a paragraph and talk about how I'm spreading misinformation, but I'm literally just taking the information from the internet. Well, you can't trust the internet, okay? Cornell.edu can't be trusted. The Black Law Dictionary cannot be trusted. That's what they want you to think. Bot, okay? Now, here's how the system trains you to confuse you, and we're diving straight into that, okay? Public education, okay? It doesn't teach you how to really go and grow in this economy the right way, Okay, it doesn't teach you how to start a business. It doesn't teach you about these different tactics in the commercial side. They don't teach you about private banking. They don't teach you about the way the economy actually operates. They only teach you how to be obedient, and they teach you how to make a wage, okay, and only make money through wage earning, okay? They'll never teach you how to make profits over wages. And they'll never tell you that profits are more important than wages. They'll also never tell you how to communicate with a bank. They will never tell you that you and the bank are equally yoked. You guys are not equally yoked, but you guys are literally equals. Or better yet, you are above the bank. Why? Because the bank needs you in order to participate in commerce. And that's evidence alone in the definition of signature. That's evidence alone in conditional offers and negotiable instruments that we create in order for them to actually exchange and make money, okay? Banks never teach commercial law or the UCC because they want you to not know so they can continue to take advantage of you. The courts assume you to be the debtor unless you rebut that presumption, and you're taught to perform but not claim remedy, okay? And the only way they teach you how to perform is to make a payment using a dollar, okay? Shall I go back to the definition of payment for my people, right? A payment is a type of performance of a duty, promise, or obligation, or a discharge of a debt, okay? The delivery of money or other value. But they'll say that you only can deliver money in order for it to be a payment, okay? So this is when you have to, again, really expand your research and get very specific with your research. Really search every single term up, right? Get down to the nitty gritty. Okay, what is the definition of payment? They're saying I have to pay. Let me actually find the definition of payment and let me challenge them on that. I can even go to the definition of payment and look at what Cornell law says. If I look up the definition of payment in Cornell law, it says the term payment means a payment that is made to further the commercial development of oil, natural gas, minerals. And I talked about this in my school community last year, okay? So we can also argue that is this too, okay? So there's many definitions, but we'll just go straight off with the Black Law Dictionary. I think this is more appropriate, okay? And most people unknowingly give consent to be the surety, okay? If you don't know what the surety is, we can pull up the surety right now. Okay, a person who takes responsibility for another's performance of an undertaking. For example, they're appearing in court or the payment of a debt, okay? Most people use their labor and fiat to settle because you go to work, you work 8 hours, right? You get paid a couple of these per hour. And people think that this is like, this is what they really want, okay? It's not that they want that. The truth is they want your time and your labor, okay? And to them, your time and labor is very cheap. Some places will only pay you a couple of these per hour, 10 of these per hour, 20 of these per hour, 50 of these per hour, 100 of these per hour. I mean, now we may be talking, right? But remember, you are exchanging your time for money. And when you are spending your time at work to pay your debts, what else are you thinking about? You can only think about the debt. You can only think about the government. You can only think about the state of the world and how it's going to pertain to you and affect you. But if you learn to assert your status as the creditor or as an executor of a trust, then you can operate much more differently. You can operate stronger, okay? So they'll never teach you how to assert yourself, all right? So let's just talk about some practical steps so that you can discharge your debt lawfully, okay? Number one, assert your status. Your status, some people say that the only way you can do this is by correcting your status, creating a trust, so on and so forth. You do want to do those things eventually. Not something you need to rush into, but you do want to do this eventually. But understanding the fundamental UCC 1-308 is essentially you reserving your rights and clarifying in your affidavits that you are acting in private and as a secured party or a trustee of your straw man, okay? Just putting them on notice about that is going to help you go a long way. Another thing you want to do is you want to send a company a conditional acceptance letter or debt validation letter or a notice of tender. and you want to do this privately. You want to demand a signed contract. You want to demand proof of lawful consideration. What is lawful consideration? Was there an even exchange? You want to demand a verification of the claim or for them to verify the debt. You want to include things like UCC 3-603 and challenge them so that when they do refuse it, then the obligation is discharged. You want to use UCC 3-305 so that you can challenge an instrument and determine whether they are the holder in due course. These are the things that you have to know and learn so that you can be able to do things like discharge debt and be able to hold them to the task. Just knowing certain aspects or that you can do it is not enough. I know that you probably know and understand that you can do it, but are you fully confident? Okay? Could you prove it to your spouse or an attorney before you actually go into court? Okay? I go back and forth with an attorney all day, and the attorney would just tell me, well, they may not just, the judge is just going to ignore that. Well, you didn't even win the argument. You just told me that they're going to ignore it and say that what I'm saying is BS, but I'm going to ask for real verified proof, and I'm going to challenge the jurisdiction. Okay? Step 3, you want to use proper instruments. And this is one of the key things that we kind of struggle with. Number 1, the use of proper instruments, whether you're going to use a coupon, okay, coupon remittance to discharge the obligation, not to pay it. Whether you're going to use a private bond backed by your trust for all my people that have a trust created. Or whether you're going to use a Form 1099 AC OID if the IRS remedy route is used, okay? So they can discharge it themselves. They can charge it off, and you can enforce them to provide you the documentation so that you can then send it to the credit bureaus and get them to remove it off your credit report. See, I'm giving you guys the game, or I've been giving you guys the game, and I hope you guys are taking action on this, okay? And the last thing you want to do, because people go through step 1, step 2, and step 3, but they don't dive into challenging them on their dishonor, okay? Be willing to document the dishonor. Be willing to catch them on their dishonor. Do this expecting them to dishonor you, because that's what's more likely going to win you the case versus you going and, arguing about how they didn't, help your, adjust your account. You know what I mean? If you document their willful noncompliance, then that's argument enough. Okay? Their dishonor nullifies the contract as well. Okay? So if there's no response, you want to create a notice of fault. That is a paper trail, you putting them on notice and saying, hey, maybe you missed this, but I'm giving you an opportunity to cure. You are at fault, so here's your second opportunity. Cupped with an affidavit of non-response, cupped with a certificate of dishonor, cupped with a default notice if they continue to ignore or continue to dishonor you, okay? You want to use this to establish an estoppel. You want to use this to establish and rebut those presumptions. You want to do this to get them to acquiesce, because the more you pressure them and shift the burden of proof onto them, now they have a duty to perform and provide and adhere to your demands. And if they don't, then that's just willful noncompliance. Or even if we dive to 15 USC 1611 literally talks about the criminal liability for the false information, okay? Or providing false information. Now, let's talk about some of the laws that support discharge over payment, okay? Well, you can't do this. Okay, you can show me the definitions, but what laws allow you to do this? Okay, well, let's start with the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act under 15 USC 1692G, which essentially is your right to validate debt, okay? And when you do validate debt, they must cease collection. When you do challenge or demand verification, they must provide this to you. It's a order, okay? This entire subsection is essentially your right to demand validation and challenge an unfair debt collection, okay? We can also talk about 31 USC 3713, 31 USC 3713, priority over government claims. And this is just like icing on the cake, essentially saying that we can prioritize government government bills over credit card bills or whatever the case may be. But it allows you, if you're operating as the fiduciary or trust, to assign the priority of discharge, okay? So you have the ability to assign your straw man's debt priority, okay, towards the government or whatever the case may be. We can also talk about UCC 910. UCC 9-210 talks about the request for accounting, which is super essential when you are doing any type of verification of debt, because this is documentation or accounting that will pretty much tell the story, okay? It'll tell you if they securitize it. It'll tell you if they set it off. It'll tell you if they made money. It'll tell you where the money came from. Or this is what they should tell you according to UCC 9-210. And then back to House Joint Resolution 192. I mean, one could easily try to fight and say, oh, well, this is like, it's still here. House Joint Resolution 192. And if you don't want to look at House Joint Resolution 192, it's literally in 31 USC 5118, okay? It's literally also put in 12 USC 411. These are a direct reflection of House Joint Resolution 192 that was enacted in 1933. So there's no longer any payment that could be made, only discharge. So we can go and look at all these different definitions of payment. We can look at the definition of discharge and things in that aspect. But the whole point of today, okay, was that you were never intended to pay your debts. You were only intended to discharge your debts. So this is why this video is here. This is why this channel is here, to have you thinking outside the box, so that you are not just going based off of what they told you. If there's anybody that's going to tell you the truth, it's going to be me, okay? If there's anybody that's trying to get you out of this pattern mindset of thinking, it's going to be me, all right? So now that we got all the way to the end, I hope you guys learned a lot from this video. I hope you guys gained a newfound confidence towards debt discharge. I hope you realized that you were never supposed to pay, that you were more supposed to understand the system so that you can be able to use it to your advantage. I hope you guys take action after seeing this video. Down below, if you want to join the community, you can tap into the community. Down below is less than $1 a day. You can go ahead and get a 7-day free trial for a limited time only. If you want to work with me one-on-one with fixing your credit, getting funding, tap into my one-on-one mentorship. If you want to follow me, tap in on my Instagram at biz.nick. Tap in on my school community on Twitch at biz_nick. Tap into the Discord as well. Drop a comment if this woke you up, or if you ever felt like the system made you pay when discharge was the real option. Remember to hit the like button. Remember to hit the subscribe button. Tap in. Turn on those post notifications. And if you've gotten this far, comment the word discharge, and I'll see you in the next one.